Yeah.
Did you say 3 a.m.?
I did.
Alright, I think we should be live. Could you check on your phone just to double check? Because now I'm paranoid. Again. Just pulling it up. If you are, hi, welcome to book club. Did you bring my book?
What? Oh, no.
Because she borrowed my book to read it. Can you hear us all right? Sarah?
I can hear you.
Okay. I was just worried because I decided to try a different setup where we were here and the thing,
We're live.
Alright, we are live. Just so we were both in frame without being on top of each other. So. Okay, well,
Okay.
since I'm the one who...
Do you want me to go get the book? It's just right there.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's, that's that big of a deal. Since I'm the one who nominated, I'll go first.
Okay.
I liked it. I really loved that the book had an overall reaching theme and that Jasmine had a character flaw. I really liked that because I felt like she was very one-dimensional in like the movie. So I really liked that. But then again, my favorite character was Jeannie. I mean, Robin Williams is amazing. Was amazingly talented, so that's not too surprising. But yeah, I really...
Have you guys seen the live action Aladdin?
No.
I refuse.
I'm not
Because
really.
it took me so long to get the book, I watched it on Disney Plus. It was weird.
I heard that it was Genie had kids and like he was telling them the story of it, and I was like, I just can't get over that who the genie is and that he's not Robin Williams. Like that I couldn't watch it realistic because of what he had to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think okay. Um well, like I thought it was really I personally kind of didn't like Jasmine's flaw. I yeah, okay, everyone has their issues and it makes sense that she hated Jafar.
Well, I didn't
She
say
knew
that I liked her flaw. I liked that she had a character flaw and she had something that she had to overcome because that's part of the hero's journey.
mm,
To choose to do better.
yeah, but I feel like usually like the fact that she actually was using black magic or dark magic or whatever, that she actually took that step and used it.
Yeah, that was hard
That
to read.
was really too far already. The fact that she was using it. And I was like, girl, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, see, I didn't like her from the very beginning of this book because it's like she comes off as just really lofty and like she really doesn't care. Like, why? I don't understand why she was in the village if she doesn't even really seem to have care. Like, there wasn't that motivation to try to. I mean, I don't know. I just didn't like her, and she just didn't even try to fit in or try to see the other points of view other than just like she was curious about Aladdin, but then it was like he saved her because she was being an idiot, and then like the whole time she's
Yeah.
just like naive and stupid, and then yet acts like she's smarter than she is. And Aladdin's all like, "Oh, she's so smart. If she wasn't locked up in that castle," and I'm like, "She's really not, though. She's not. She's just um reckless maybe and a little bit more adventurous or wants to be, but
Yeah.
reckless and brave are not the same thing.
her motives
And
took.
then her motivations to fight with war was just like purely selfish. Like, she
Yeah.
just wanted revenge for her father.
She wanted
And
revenge.
it wasn't like, oh, we're fighting to free Agrabah. No, I mean, she said because she knew it would get everyone to rally behind her. But that was like small potatoes compared to her revenge for that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, she's just
her motivation
rubbed me the wrong way the whole time.
Her motivation to leaving to go to the village was just to be outside of the castle. That was literally the only motivation she had, was no longer be inside the castle. Her goal was to run away. But when she gave the little kid an apple, the guy was going to cut off her hand, Aladdin stepped in, she owed Aladdin, trusted him, I guess, because he saved her. And so then she was curious to why she was about to lose her hand, and then that struck more conversation towards poverty and all that stuff. So then by going through that, then she wanted to know more, but I feel like she is smart to a certain extent, but it's literally only book smart, not people smart,
not street
not
smart.
streets, obviously not life, outside the castle walls smart, because she's been kept in this little teeny, snow globe.
Little bubble. I think that's why she's going to be a better ruler than her father, because she has Aladdin who knows what it is to go hungry, to be poor, to struggle. And so, like they said in the street rats will keep her grounded, because and I think that's really
appreciate
important.
that she made the head street rat into her confidant, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, royal advisor.
Which is what it used to be.
I liked that part. I loved the evolution of their friendship.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was
Because
really realistic.
everyone grew.
Yeah.
Their characters grew because they may have known what they were doing was wrong, but didn't care because they just hated everyone and needed to survive. And then their need to survive kind of grew into greed. And then by going through this and then walking side by side with Jasmine, then they kind of got over their greed and
well, and it's hard to blame someone when you're literally fighting next to them,
I kind of
because in their mind she's just a posh princess in a castle, so they can blame her, hate her, or steal from her all they want. But then when she's really there and with them and she's a real person, it becomes harder to do that.
Well, plus, like, she's literally in the trenches with them. She's poor, just like them. So she kind of becomes one of them in a way. Not completely, obviously, but
as much as she could have.
Yeah, as much as she could have, and I think that made her a little bit more real too. I loved what they did with Jafar. As far as like as a character, I'm a writer, so I love these kind of things. But I love that they gave him a backstory, an explanation on why he was the way he was, and I guess kind of a peek into his brain.
I cannot believe that he killed Iago.
I know, right?
That was creepy, right?
I was like,
so
I sensed that there was something going on because Iago never spoke, and you're like, he's a parrot, like that's their relationship, the little bickering back and forth type. Obviously, he can talk. And
but
then,
how sad is that? That he had to sacrifice the only thing he loved, and it was his parrot.
Yeah.
And then he's like talking to it, and it's like
that just shows you his mental state is not all
yeah.
there. And you're
He
like,
totally was pushed
he's
over the
still
edge.
talking to Iago, even though when did he kill him?
In the very
The
beginning.
very beginning. Like, and he was talking to him, multiple times.
Yeah.
Or they're like, where's the parrot? Like, I'm like, the fact that people actually pointed out the fact that the parrot wasn't in the room, that
Right.
was a little weird. You're like, okay, why do
Mm.
they feel safe enough to mention it if they're so afraid of Jafar? And then why are they so concerned about the parrot? And then you're like,
Yeah.
well, apparently they had a hunch that he did something to it, and he did.
But it's like
Well,
he treated that thing like his child, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and he doesn't seem to care. And they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
we thought you had a heart because you had a pet, and now it's like, where'd your heart go?
Yep.
Yeah. I almost think that that makes him kind of a tragic figure almost, like where he did awful stuff, but I think ultimately what he really wanted was somebody to love him.
And Iago was the closest person to actually doing it,
Yeah.
and he killed it.
And then it was like all downhill from there.
Okay, I love Abu. I love Genie. I love Magic Carpet.
I was so sad when he did to Magic Carpet.
I
That was
was
horrible.
like, what? And like the description, like he was
Ugh.
bleeding. You're like,
Yeah.
honestly, he's magic. So he could almost be a person that was magically transformed into the carpet. And
Mm-hmm.
when she said bleeding, like bleeding, you're like, maybe it could be something like that. Or, because I don't think magical things or objects that were turned magical could have life like that and stuff. So it was just so heartbreaking to, like, Jafar just tore it apart and then used it in such a disgusting way. You're like, wow.
Mm.
I'm surprised it actually worked though.
I
Like,
am
it was
too.
a really weird thing. You're like, okay, he's torturing it, but then he's tearing it apart, and then it's like bleeding, but he like keeps going, and you're like, what's his goal here? What's his plan? And then we see them dead people floating, and you're like, okay, that's morbid.
I thought the whole like the description of the eyes of the zombie
Yeah,
people was super creepy. It creeped me out.
you're like, I can't. Well, I wonder how close he was to breaking the third rule.
Hmm. I doubt very close.
I mean, it's one thing to bring back the dead and all that, but making someone love you is not something that you can just wave your magic wand and come up with a creepy spell and whatever.
Well, I mean,
Or a
there are
potion.
love potions.
In
But
Harry
still,
Potter.
it's more of obsession than love.
Yeah.
True.
Plus,
Yeah.
you're literally mind controlling that person. So,
And it probably has to be like redosed.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I know like with Voldemort's mom, I can't remember her name, um, did that with his dad where she had to keep feeding him the potion in order for him to stay, and then when she stopped, that's when he left. And that's why Voldemort is so messed up and all that.
Yeah. He doesn't
So,
have a heart because he was.
yeah.
But it's like, so we got a touch of Jafar's backstory with his mom, and all she gave him was a name, and you're like, okay, so she like abandoned you. You were like an orphan on the streets, but then she sold you to somebody. So you really were just a slave to somebody and did all what they wished and stuff. And you're like, how many people are in that situation? And yes, they don't like being treated the way that they've been treated, but they at least have like the decency to treat others better that are in that situation. You know, like everyone who's been through something like that, they usually look at others who are going through certain things like that with respect or kindness because they know how hard it is to go through that. Jafar decides to go evil and then I'm gonna take over Agrabah and then the world because that makes a giant,
Oh my gosh, the way he killed Jasmine's dad.
Oh my gosh.
When that happened, I was like, wait, what just happened?
That was like so anticlimactic, but then also not because all of a sudden, and he pushed him off the thing, and you're like,
and then they switch chapters,
what?
And you're like, what?
Yeah, and
wait,
then you have to read the entire chapter, and then you get to the next one, and then at the start of her mourning, and you're like, it really did happen. That wasn't just a ploy.
He literally murdered the previous king, sultan, in front of the entire place, in front of his daughter, and didn't think, maybe the chick that I want to marry, I want her to love me. I'm gonna straight up murder her father right in front of her. This is a good idea.
He doesn't have the whole flirting thing down, does he?
No.
Yeah. I'm like, of course Jasmine's like, he's known Jasmine or whatever, and she's already the princess, and he wants to be the sultan, and he thinks marrying her will just, make him even more the sultan legally and everything, and what he wants. Well, no doubt of him being the sultan, but like, and she's pretty or whatever, but he's very dead set on Jasmine, and you're like, she's literally not hidden the fact that she doesn't like you the entire time.
I mean, you killed her father in front of her.
Yeah, and then you kill her father in front of her. Treat him, before you kill him, awful.
Treat her awful.
Yeah. And then take over all her people and make them psychotic people who brand themselves in loyalty to you for a crust of bread. That was like too dark for me.
That was very dark.
That was okay. There's Bringing Back the Dead.
What is the age group of this book?
I don't know because there was some.
Because I feel like it's supposed to be a kid's book, but then when you're reading it, it's definitely not a kid's book.
Well, I have more of her books, and I would definitely say, having read, I read Tale as Old as Time, which is the fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and that one is kind of dark. I don't want to give anything away in case you guys want to read it, because I did like it.
It's just dark.
It's just dark, kind of like
it makes sense, though, that it's kind of dark, because when it comes to terrible, horrible villains, they have a dark side, so of course to understand or get in depth in the story, you have to see that darkness.
And I do appreciate that it's real and raw and not like sugar-coated, but I'm just like, I would have thought this was a kid's book, and then reading it, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
No. Especially because it's Disney Press, so you're like, what?
I think they wrote it for kids like us who grew up with the Disney movies, and then now that we're older,
when I saw the books at the bookstore, they were in the young adult category, like in the teens category. They weren't in the little kids area. So.
Yeah, so I think they're aimed for teens for sure, because I wouldn't let my younger children, probably under the age of
then I would be very careful. Like,
not that I have kids, obviously.
I would like, it definitely depends on if they're like me. When we went to see Lion King in theaters, when Simba died, I bawled my eyes out and I begged Mom to take us home because it upset me that much. So I was a very sensitive kid, and I would say that I'm still kind of sensitive.
You have feelings.
I have feelings.
You can connect with characters
Yeah.
very easily.
Even animated lions.
Okay.
Sorry, what?
You have empathy.
Yes, I have empathy.
Who wouldn't, like, you have a brother, so you have that connection with Mufasa and Scar, and your brother kills you, or your father, your uncle kills your father and their brothers, you're like right in front of you, but not enough where you know that it was really him.
It's like Cain and Abel.
It's like, it's just awful.
To this day, that and Bambi, I literally can't watch those movies because I bawl my eyes out.
Okay,
I do.
Bambi is super sad.
Yeah.
But then you have the happy little moments of meeting Flower and Thumper and the gang being together, and you're like, they're just so
but it's not
cute.
worth it. It's just not worth it.
That's why I like looking at YouTube videos of just those parts. I'm like, oh, it's Flower.
Not with that movie, but like with other movies where I'm like,
Yeah.
I like these parts of the movie, but I don't like these parts.
Or
so
like,
watch the happy parts.
or just like memes or gifs of them.
They call me Thumper.
It's funny how I always remember Flower with kind of a southern accent, except for he doesn't have one.
No.
And it's funny because that's just, the thing. Just a slight southern accent, like
You remember him? I don't even know the genre.
it's a man.
It's a
boy.
Remember, because then they get separated and they all three fall for girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
the distinguish was the flower in the girl's hair.
Okay. I don't know.
And the long eyelashes.
Oh yeah,
Right.
that's right. Cause
I always
that's
find that funny.
That's how you flirt with your
Even
eyes.
Okay. Yeah, because that's attractive. I think it's so funny how in animation that is literally the distinction, like eyelashes versus no
Well, they
eyelashes.
are
Like
animals.
Mulan.
And it's really funny because Daniel has longer eyelashes than me, and I like literally have eyelash envy over his eyelashes, and I'm just like, you're a guy, so you would not be a good cartoon because you'd be very confusing with those eyelashes.
That is true.
Yeah. Well,
You too have very long eyelashes.
I feel like
very big eyes.
I
Like beautiful big eyes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Especially when she does like the cat eye. It's just gorgeous.
I know Jennifer, sometimes she just stares into my eyes. And I'm like, okay. I don't find this a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But, well, I think that the fact that they let Carpet die completely, you're like, he's gone. There's no weaving him or and magic is dead. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, first of all, Jafar's last wish, totally unexpected.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden,
cool too. I liked it.
All of a sudden, he's like, if I can't have magic, if I can't control the world, nobody can. And you're all like, what?
That was like a huge power move.
It was heartbreaking because of Carpet and Genie, but of course Genie was free then. Yeah. But he wasn't Genie anymore. Mm-hmm. He was a human, and you're like, wow.
I personally wished he had stayed and then he could be on Jasmine's council too. Because he's got to be pretty wise having been that old, right?
Genie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like a
but
crazy crazy
But
uncle.
like he said, the place was too close to terrible memories, and he wanted to forget those 10,000 years of terrible memories and remember what, is good in the world, which makes sense because,
His story was really sad because it's like he was trying to save his people, and in doing so, he lost his whole family and his whole world.
Yeah. And he was basically sleeping, if you will, and woke up and they were all gone. Which is even more heartbreaking that he wasn't aware what was happening when it happened. And you're like, that is so sad. And I thought it was so cute that when Jafar kind of wished, but then it was like retracted because it wasn't possible or whatever, to make the most, beautiful dress ever for Jasmine or whatever, and Genie made his wife's wedding dress and gave it to
That
her.
was so sad.
Yeah. It was. But then Jasmine's like, oh, I love it. It's so perfect. And then he's like, it was my wife's. And it's just like, wow. Way to really hit the heart there. You're like,
It's a good thing she liked it, because that would have been really awkward if she's like, oh, yeah, I was thinking something a little more, I don't know, whatever.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
I love that dynamic between them.
It was.
How it grew.
It was kind of Jasmine and Genie that had the relationship, not Aladdin and Genie.
Yeah.
Which was a new twist because Aladdin barely even knew who Genie was. They might have had no, they did have a conversation until the end when he wasn't a genie anymore.
Yeah.
But they saw each other.
right, like when he was stealing the books and stuff, the genie turned a blind eye and helped him not get caught and stuff.
Which I'm like, of course Genie did that, He really is not. He's just enslaved to do the bidding.
Yeah. It's just as heartbreaking as in the movie because, like, even though, like, in the movie, he has a relationship with Aladdin first, and then Jafar becomes his master, but it's still very heartbreaking and very, like,
Yeah.
hard to see.
But, like, so I think the different aspect of the beginning when Aladdin goes with Jafar, the old man, to get the lamp, and then he gets trapped down there with Abu and magic carpet, and he starts to like hallucinate and think that magic carpet and Abu are fake, aren't real. And you're like, okay, that's so funny but sad at the same time because they aren't, and he's, thinking that they are, and then he's just like, well, whatever, I'm just gonna keep going and not let that bother me, and and you're just like, oh my gosh, and then he gets to a point where he's like, I can't believe I thought that they weren't real. And he was like mad at himself.
Like, dude, you were hungry and thirsty, and you had just been through something, so it's
It
like...
makes sense, but it's kind of funny because he thought that way, but then he was like mad at himself for thinking that way because obviously they're real, and then when he finally gets out and everything, which I thought was a new, different way of getting out because in the movie he has the magic lamp and Jafar doesn't for just one aspect, and Aladdin's trapped, so that holds him off for what, a week? Yeah, he's gone for a week, and then so Jafar has that like head start, which I think really helped his plan be further along than their rebellion, because Jasmine was still trapped, and then he had control over her,
And he thought Aladdin was dead.
So Aladdin had that advantage, but also that whole week was a disadvantage of him actually being gone. And then he came back, and it was all of a sudden like night and day from before.
I thought he was gone 3 days.
I don't know.
He talks about how he was gone a week, though. Because
But
I don't think...
was like, you disappear for 3 days and then come back and everything's changed and you don't know what's going on.
Well, he did not know the concept of time because, being stuck in that place and you're not sure time. So he probably felt that it was a week, but not being sure. And then when he got back, he's like,
I don't think you'd survive a week without food and water. 3 days seems more realistic.
Yeah. But I also think it's realistic that he has no concept of how long he was gone, especially considering how different everything was when he came back. So that's even more
that definitely added to it. He was all of a sudden like,
hold up, wait a minute.
Wait, what? Which I thought was funny because the parade was Jafar's and not Aladdin's. And you're like, that totally is way more pompous, and you can actually see it from that point of view. You're like, okay, Aladdin, this is a little over the top. But then you're like, oh, it's Jafar. You're like, oh, I saw that coming.
Well, it wasn't even Aladdin doing it, though. It was Genie.
True.
Genie's looking for theatrics.
Yeah.
Like in the live-action movie, when he comes in with Genie, and now Genie's like, okay, now it's your turn to talk. And Aladdin's like, hello. And he doesn't know what to say. He's like, we brought jam. And they're like, jam? He's like, yes, all sorts of jams. And it was just really funny because Genie's like, wow, you just ruined my whole entrance. I did all that build up, and now it's just like, oh, the prince brought jam. Oh, and jewels and other stuff, but and then he like had him dance with Jasmine, and he like took control of his body so that he was like doing crazy moves and stuff, and just totally over the top. And then he did a backflip, and Jasmine walked away. And he's like, was the backflip too much? I'm like, you're trying to impress her, and Genie is taking over, and it's not you wooing her anymore, it's Genie. And then they have a little pep talk back in the room where Genie's like, you just gotta be yourself. And I'm like, let him be himself then. Let him be adorable instead of taking over and making him look like a pompous, arrogant jerk.
Yeah.
Like, just let him screw up a few times. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't like the aspect of... It's kind of like the Cinderella effect, where he's the street boy and then, oh, he's the prince because he's wearing fancier clothes, has all this entourage and a turban. And you're like, such a disguise. And then Jasmine can't even, like, she kind of sees it, but then she, like, doesn't anymore. And you're just like, really? Are you stupid, Jasmine? Just like Prince Charming?
Well, in the live action, they discuss that where Genie's like, no one will recognize you because of the magic.
Yeah.
So it's part of the magic where no one can recognize him. But she figured it out like right away in the movie. Because she was just like, oh, it's too bad Abu's not here. And he's like, oh, and she's like, I knew it was you.
Yeah. I liked that part.
You saw the live action?
Not the live action, that happened in the animated.
It happened in both, but yeah.
I haven't.
Because she figures it out, and then, yeah. She plays along really well, though. That's where it's really funny, because she's just like, yeah, okay, Prince. And then she's like, okay, tell me the truth. Which is it? Are you a street rat, or are you a prince? And why were you dressed as a street rat if you're a prince? And why are you dressed as a prince if you're a street rat? Or whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm giving you the opportunity to tell me the truth right now.
And she doesn't really care. It's really just the stupid, weird law thing. Which you're like, really?
Yeah.
There's a law that says she has to marry a prince?
Well, it's to secure the line of succession.
Before her something birthday? Okay, in the book it didn't specifically say that there's a law, but that's what it is in the movie. That there's a law.
Yeah.
By her next birthday, she had to marry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like
I feel like they needed for the movie wise. I think they wrote it that way because they needed a ticking time clock to build suspense, kind of a thing.
it does give a whole definite like when her wedding will be or when she'll be forced to marry.
Yeah.
Versus like in the book, you're like she's just on the edge of if she gets caught, boom, Jafar's probably gonna marry her on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, which I don't know. I personally didn't like Jasmine's overall character because as a whole, she was very self-absorbed, and I'm like, okay, there's some leniency to that because she is an only child and a princess, and she's locked in the castle by herself and only Raja. So she only cares about herself, Raja, and barely her dad. Like, she kind of resents him, though. And so you're like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. But then she goes out and she finds out about, Agrabah, the street rats, the kids, and you're like, she kind of has compassion, but then it, like, morphs into something kind of different. Like, I don't have a... Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Well, it doesn't, like, completely change where then that's her motives and she's like, I want to make a better Agrabah. But I felt like, I know she's the princess and technically she does have the right to rule, but I felt like she was too much already in the mindset of she's going to be the ruler. Versus I feel like she needed to establish why she could be a better ruler.
Well, see,
Not
I think
that
it was an opportunity where they didn't really talk about her mom and how her mom wanted better for the poor people. And, like, her mom promised them that it would be better, and then when she died, everything went back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And it was like a missed opportunity of her being able to step into her mom's legacy and kind of help her mom's dreams come true for Agrabah. But they didn't really discuss that. I mean, they pointed it out, like, randomly, like, oh, that...
like the what? Like the Sultine... What is it?
Sultana? But you also have to keep into perspective that for a long time, sultans, kings, queens, or whatever, people in, royalty, basically, they truly believed that it was God ordained that they were rulers, that they had a direct link with God because they were royalty. They believed it was their right, their destiny to rule. And considering she is the only child of the Sultan, she knew she was the heir to the throne, kind of. And so she has that mindset of, this is my kingdom now. My dad is gone. This is my kingdom. And so I think that is kind of realistic for royalty because they do have that mindset of, I have every right to rule. Of course I do. I'm royal.
Yeah, but I feel like going through the motions of her being princess and then her being practically a street rat, it I feel like should humble her to realize.
Okay, but she was never actually practically a street rat. Just because she was slumming with them, they still fed her like a queen and treated her like royalty. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was no humbling situation where she would be humbled, because it was just like everyone knew that she was the princess. And even though she wasn't right now, they still treated her like she was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, I mean, even the street rats fed her out of cupware from the palace and gave her the best off of their table practically, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically took over and was in charge while she was there. So it was just kind of like,
Well, she did kind of apologize for that too, in a way, where she's like, "Sorry, I kind of took over for you."
but I'm just saying they let her, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like she had to fight for it. I mean, she was out of the palace 5 minutes before Aladdin took her there, kind of thing, and it was like she was never on her own, except for when she snuck out of the palace in the first part of the book. And even then, it was just like she was almost like surreally like in another world, like it was a dream kind of thing, where she didn't really know what was going on enough for it to like truly have an effect. I feel like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
or at least not a humbling effect, because she was more indignant when he was gonna chop her hand off and stuff. Like she's like, what the heck?
Hmm. Was she? I'm trying to think of the wording.
And then she just played along with being stupid, and it was like, okay, sure.
Yeah. So she's definitely like good at acting. And I don't like how much of a like there's being a leader and then there was something about how she went about doing things I felt like was more driven by revenge than peace, and her whole preaching was peace. And you're like, you're lying to everyone. You're lying to yourself if you don't think that you're lying to everyone. To think that you have the best interest of your people and Agrabah
Well,
at
I
heart.
disagree. I think you can have both motives. I think she wanted revenge against him, but she also did want peace for Agrabah.
Eventually. But her most prominent thing was Jafar revenge. And then after Jafar revenge, then we can get peace.
Well, and then she was so set on the fact that she needed the magic to create
Yeah.
the Agrabah she envisioned. And it was like, magic is why everything is the way that it is, where it's screwed up right now. I don't think magic is the answer to more magic is not the answer to bad magic.
Yeah.
That part I felt was kind of unrealistic because I feel like what would have been a natural response would be like, magic is bad, we need to demolish magic from her just because she had
Well, and that's
seen
where
the
Aladdin
light.
was like, wait a minute. You want to use the magic? Like, this is where we got all this bad stuff.
Yeah,
Hello.
he's like, and what if it falls in the wrong hands? And she's like, you want to destroy it to just to the possibility of it someday falling in the wrong hands? And he's like, yes, I thought I was perfectly clear on that. Yes.
And he's like, I don't want to say that I think you're the wrong hands because you're acting psycho right now, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
because
know.
they will be in the wrong hands no matter what.
But I kind of like that dynamic of her having flawed thinking and Aladdin being like, okay, Jazz, come on, sweetie, I love you, but no, this is not a good idea. And I kind of like that.
I don't know. I felt like they acted kind of like an old married couple, but then not at the same time because
I know,
they
and they
were
didn't even date. It was
they
just all of a sudden they were old lovers, and even that didn't cause a rift where you would think it would cause, like, at
it
least a
be
little bit of annoyance on her part, where she'd be like, "He thinks he can tell me what to do. I'm the princess and whatever." But she didn't like get upset, which I thought was
yeah.
interesting.
Maybe because she knew she couldn't do any of that without him. Like the reason why she was in with the street rats was because of him, and so she knew.
But it's still like their relationship is so new and different.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like at that beginning part of a relationship, things are more tender and fragile. And so, just like the way they were able to talk to each other without having them freak out and be like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" kind of thing, because I don't know you that well.
Right.
So you could be meaning this in a really mean way, or you could not. So, there was none of that like tension.
It was definitely a weird aspect to go about. You're like, they're both young. They've both never been in this kind of a relationship.
Mhm.
Technically, they haven't even talked about being in this kind of relationship. They just kind of were all of a sudden in it.
Mhm.
And then they're fighting, and then they go, oh, well, let's not leave on bad terms, and then they get all lovey dovey, and you're just like, how was that a possibility? Like, to flip the switch. Like, I don't even know people that versatile in real life. To be going through something and having a little disagreement, which honestly is a big disagreement because it's kind of like your core value system, you know, believing right and wrong. It's just the simple way to put it. And then you go, but I love you anyway, let's just kiss and make up, and then we go off and fight. And then
Especially
we'll
because
talk
the
about it.
conflict wasn't really resolved. They were both just like,
No,
well, agree to disagree.
they're just like, we'll discuss it when the time comes. You're like, no, 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 the time is now. You're going to get the book now. That is the time to talk about it, was when the time you were talking about it. And in fact, you should have probably talked about it sooner, but this is the very last minute. You can talk about it, and you haven't resolved it. You've just said, okay, well, when the time comes, we'll have to talk about it again. And you're like, that was then. And that was all that was happening. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was a little unrealistic. Or they were both play acting and then they didn't get too deep in how they were really feeling. I don't know.
Well, and sometimes couples just don't like conflict, and so they'll just be like, "Yeah, okay, we'll just talk about this later.
Well,
I
that
love you because I don't want to fight right now."
yeah, that and they both knew that they were going off to war, and they could potentially die, and so there could be that also of let's not leave this on a negative note. Let's
Yeah.
leave it on a positive.
Yeah, but I felt like it was just too forceful. Like, realistically. You think that you were fighting with someone and you could turn around and be like, but I love you, mwah, go off to war and die. I mean, possibly die.
I could see myself being more like, I am mad at you. I still do not like this. This is not finished, but I still love you. So
You
be
gotta
safe.
use your life skills, Maria, and say the conflict of the moment is not more important than the relationship.
It's not about the relationship exactly. Okay, it kind of is, actually, because, but I feel like something so big is destroying something that could potentially hurt everyone, and it is going to hurt everyone.
But they had so many things going on that it's like you can't focus on that tiny little detail
Yeah.
and blow that out of proportion, because it's like, yes, they were like, oh yeah, we need to talk about this, but then they're like, okay, well, we don't agree, so I guess we can't talk about this right now because I gotta go fight a war, so we'll talk later because obviously we're not gonna get through this right now and we don't have time to keep talking about it. So
Yeah.
you just gotta kind of, I mean, there's so many other things going on where it's like you can't just laser focus on the one issue, even though yes, it is a big issue, but it can be resolved later, because it's like you can always destroy it later, you can't undestroy it. So go get it and then talk about it and then destroy it, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and
In the end, it was mute because Jafar destroyed magic. So
I mean, the most important thing about that was that they were in a hurry to go rescue those kids and the grandfather out of the time turner. They had a time schedule. It
yeah,
was called Sand, falling and killing their friends. That was why they were in a hurry.
they're like their lives are more important right now. We need to save them. Yeah.
I kind of saw, what is it, Dobin? Whatever, the guy.
Yeah, him doing that, I
I
kind of did
totally,
too.
he went silent treatment, separate from the world, and even though others were reassuring him, and he had all the reason in the world to trust them because they had been through everything together and everything had worked out. He didn't have hope in something. So you knew he had something going on in the back of his head.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really crazy how quickly he spiraled out of control when it's like, they're not even dead yet. You have a chance to save them, but you're blinded by revenge and hatred. And he didn't even want to save them because he wanted to be the one to kill Jafar. It's like, your family's still alive. You have a chance to save them, but you're going to send your friend off to save them so you could kill the one who's kidnapped them? It just seems really pathetic to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I almost felt like maybe what the author was trying to do was maybe in a subtle, weird, roundabout way, like teaching Jasmine why it was a bad decision. Because I think in the moment when she finally put it down, it was more like because Aladdin was like telling, like she was like, okay, for Aladdin, whatever.
And then when he stepped in, she was like, "What?"
Yeah.
This
so I
is,
think that
and
was
then
a very
she's like,
a learning
"This
point for
is
her.
bad."
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, so you can
No
torture
way.
him. You can torture him, but this guy's doing it." And you're like, "No, only I can." You're like, "Okay, sometimes you need that kind of a realization." Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but
Well, and like everyone in the room was like horrified the whole
everyone
time.
was his
Yeah.
own
And they're like,
family.
yeah, he's evil, but oh my gosh.
His own family couldn't even look at him the same way after.
Yeah.
It was so
And
sad.
that is so sad because he
Now
says
he
he
isn't
did it for
racist.
them, but really he did it for himself. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, you may have not let your family die, or your family didn't die, but you lost them. They're gone.
And that's
They're
why
no
he ends up.
longer there as your family because of what you did. And now you're going to go off, travel the world with Genie to try and forget, trying to, pretend life is better than it really is, when what matters most is family.
Well, he's escaping the consequences of his actions. He's trying to anyway.
Yeah, and you're leaving your Morgana,
Mm.
and you're like, what a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
His character development was, he's a jerk now.
It was a negative character arc. Is
Yeah.
what you
Yeah,
call
with
that.
development.
The development into the really bad guy. Because Jafar was a bad guy. He was mentally unstable, destroyed magic, which was all the bad that
I
he
wouldn't
did.
go as far as calling him a hero just because his
No.
last move was probably the best thing he ever did.
He did it out of selfishness because
Okay,
if I can't have it, no one can.
I don't fully see him as a hero, but when in comparison to your heart and the choices you make in tough situations like this battle, uh, selfish revenge reasons, and I mean, destroying magic so nobody else can have it. Yeah, that's not the, you know, that's a very selfish reason.
Mm.
But in it kind of was like the nail in the coffin. He just turned it over, saved the day in that moment for a brief second, and then you realize magic is completely dead, which you kind of mourn the
But
loss
his
of magic.
motive was so she couldn't fix Agrabah. He literally was like, good luck trying to fix all this now. You've got a city in ruins, and now you don't have magic to fix it. So it was definitely his last evil intention. So, like, he wanted them to burn.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think we should do our nominations because we've been talking for an hour. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that. Sarah, why don't you go first?
Okay, hold on, I gotta pull it up.
What the heck?
What in the world?
That's sorry.
Oh, I was like, what is happening? I don't have an alarm. I thought it was on my thing for a second.
I can't figure out how to just change the days because that's only supposed to be a few days of the week.
Okay, I had it. No, I can't find it. Hold on. It might take me a second. Someone else go first.
Okay. I'm nominating Persuasion by Jane Austen because I always make a point of reading it, and for some reason, it's always in spring.
Really? You
Yeah.
always make a point of reading it?
Every year I read. There are certain books that I read like every year, and Persuasion, Mansfield Park, Pride and Prejudice. Those are ones that I do. And I looked on Goodreads because you can see like the dates and when you read things, and it's always in spring that I read them. It's so weird.
Interesting.
I don't think I need to read the description, do I? Or should I? Anyway.
Well, I've never read Persuasion.
Okay. 7 years earlier, Anne Elliot broke off her engagement to the man she loved. When the opportunity arises for her to renew their romance, will she overcome the social structures that made her earlier match seem ill-conceived? That's the description that this has.
Okay, I got my book. Should I go?
Go for it.
Okay. It's The Mark of the Thief by Jennifer Nielsen. And the description is when Nick, a slave in the mines outside Rome, is forced to enter a sealed cavern containing the lost treasures of Julius Caesar, he finds much more than gold and gemstones. He discovers an ancient bulla, an amulet that belonged to the great Caesar, and is filled with magic once reserved for the gods. Magic some Romans would kill for. Now, with the deadly power of the bulla pulsing through his veins, Nick is determined to become free, but instead finds himself at the center of a ruthless conspiracy to overthrow the emperor and spark the Praetor War, a battle to destroy Rome from within. Traitors and spies lurk at every turn, each more desperate than the next to use Nick's newfound powers for their own dark purposes. In a quest to stop the rebellion, save Rome, and secure his own freedom, Nick must harness the magic within himself and defeat the Emperor's most powerful and savage leaders.
That sounds really interesting. Never heard of it. Is it a new one?
I don't think it's new. It was under my Scribd app, and it was for fans of Rick Riordan, so I was like, I think that sounds pretty cool.
Fans of Rick Riordan, yes.
Just look at my
I literally did that. I literally drew like a check mark when I said that without even like saying it.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Okay. I think you're renominating something?
I am because I haven't read the book yet. I wanted to read it, and I just renominated because it's, obviously I haven't read it yet, so why not? Okay, it's Tangled in Time: The Portal by Catherine Lesky, and life used to be great for Rose. but she loved her friends. She loved her friends, got along with her mom. Her dad was out of the picture and was starting to rack up a lot of her hits on her fashion blog. But then her mom dies in a car crash, and Rose is sent away to live with a grandmother she hardly knows. The only place Rose can take refuge is in her grandmother's greenhouse. One night she finds herself transported to another time and place. Rose has traveled back in time to Hatfield House, the home of a banished princess, Elizabeth, the daughter of King Henry VIII. Then she discovers something truly amazing, a beautiful locket with two mysterious images inside it, both clues to her own past. Could the greenhouse portal offer answers to the mystery of her family and their secrets? So,
All right, who wants to vote first? We never want to vote first. Sarah, go first.
Ah, you're so mean.
you always force it on Sarah or me.
Yeah, because I don't want to.
Just like pulling rank on us or something.
Yeah,
I'm
apparently.
the eldest.
You're like, I'm in charge.
Do it.
Little glimpse,
Okay, fine.
little glimpse of our childhood.
Sister Party is one of us.
Hey, you're the oldest. You taught me how to be bossy.
Fine.
You deny that it's true?
I don't think so. I plead the fifth. All right, I'll go first, and I vote for Maria's.
I vote for my own.
You're the tiebreaker. See, the first and the last are the hardest.
But also sometimes the second, because you're like,
True.
do I want to go with it, or do I want to, forge
Especially
my
if you're
own
running for the same thing as the first person, because then it's like, I don't want your vote to feel like irrelevant if you're last, but
That's
I'm
true.
voting for the
So
second
it
one.
really, each vote, it really matters, because...
Okay, just pick one. My battery's dying.
Okay,
And my husband's trying to get a hold of me.
Who is?
Daniel.
Oh, okay.
I'll go with mine, too. All right.
Okay, what is it called again?
Tangled in Time.
Tangled in Time. I've seen that one before.
Yeah, you gave it to me for Christmas.
Okay, no wonder it all sounded so familiar. I was like,
I know, I was at first kind of like, I don't want to pick it and then like totally tear apart the book that you gave me for Christmas, but I really want to read it, and it's fun to read it with people and then discuss it. So I'm like, wow.
And it's not like I'm gonna take it personally just because the book is bad. Like, I didn't write it.
True.
You're gonna be picking it apart just as much, right? So.
Well,
right.
some.
Be like, why did I pick the stupid book?
Okay. Well.
All right, I guess that's it for today. Thank you for joining us for book club. I hope you enjoyed this heated discussion because it got kind of heated.
But did it?
Well,
Do you consider that heat?
It was passionate.
it was passionate. We defend our opinions very passionately. So yeah,
And we obviously all had different opinions of the story.
yeah, that's how it goes. Like always, if you have any books you would like to nominate for book club, leave them in the comment section below, Daniel, because you didn't do it yet again. So, like if you liked, subscribe, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.